welcome to new teacher support, encouragement, enthusiasm, joy. We are very blessed to have with us Michaela Willoughby, and we have Esther Dunlop, and Esther is in Florida, in Oviedo, so she knows firsthand what's going on down there, and it was kind of touch and go whether or not Esther could make it with us today. Thankfully, obviously, the hurricane shifted enough and went around, so there was some damage by Esther, but we're very thankful she was able to get the connection, have the time, and be with us. Today, what we'll do is just let Michaela and Esther give you some tips, some ideas, some encouragement. So Michaela and Esther, over to you.
Well, thank you for that introduction, Al. We are very excited that you've joined us online. It's obvious that you take your role seriously as a new teacher, however you define that. So we're going to start off by talking about parent-teacher conferences. I know our conferences are coming up shortly, just in a few weeks. And so some of the things that you'll need to think about are who's going to attend the conference. Is it just going to be the teachers and the parents? Will you have other coworkers with you in the meeting for certain meetings, or will the students attend? And if the students attend the conference, are you going to have them lead the conference, or are you going to lead it? So start thinking through some of those questions now, and maybe even ask your coworkers what they do and why they do it, so that you can make the best decision for your students. For conferences, I always set a timer. So we have the beginning and the end equal for all families. And even if I don't have anything scheduled after a conference, I still set the timer, because we need bathroom breaks as teachers. And at the end of the day, you don't want your last conference to go for 2 hours. You're going to be depleted at that point. So if you need more time, you can always schedule another conference. For documents that you'll want to have on hand, you'll want a student self-assessment so that parents can see how the child thinks that they're doing. Do they enjoy, which subjects do they enjoy? Which subjects are they struggling with? What are their goals for themselves? I also have the grades or the progress report in front of me so that I can refer to that, as well as examples of student work or writing samples or a portfolio. And I also have a talking points sheet, which are shared in the Google Drive Access document folder. And that's for me to list a few strengths of the student, a few things that we're working on this year. And I work through with the students what goals they're going to try to accomplish by the next month or by the end of the semester. And that helps us have a direction for the conference. So it's not just saying, hey, families, these are the things where we're really struggling with your child, and leave it at that. You don't want parents to just hear that at a conference. Instead, you want them to hear every parent needs to hear something positive about their child. They've made the effort to come and visit you. Give them at least that. But then it's also good to have a plan in place, or at least a goal. And so I usually start my conferences with prayer, and then I praise the child. We talk about behaviors, grades, and then what plans we have in place as well. These are for official parent-teacher conferences. There will also be times where a parent wants to meet with you. My typical rule of thumb for those unofficial conferences are to wait 24 hours, because usually that parent wants to meet with you because they are passionate about something, and you want to give them time to cool off if needed. So I'll respond to their request, but I will schedule it for the next day. Even if they say, I need to meet with you immediately, give them that time to cool off. I also schedule those conferences for only 15 minutes because I know that if a parent is coming in to complain about something, I don't want to listen to it for more than 15 minutes. But it also gives me time to hear what they have to say. And then I can go home for the night, process it, and respond later, or respond the very next day if I wasn't able to respond during the meeting. And so far that's worked out for me. Parents usually understand, like, 15 minutes is usually good enough. It's an effective, I believe that effective meetings can happen in 15 minutes as long as you plan what you're going to say in advance. And then sometimes before conferences, I'll write out a few sentence starters as well, so that I can already think, I can already prompt my brain with what I'm going to say. So that could be like, oh, I hear that you say this, or you said that your child is spending this much time doing X, Y, and Z. So practice restating what you hear the parents telling you, and then it'll be easier for you to actually talk through the conference itself. So Michaela, I know you have some tips.
Yeah, one thing that really helped me, because talking to parents for the first time can be a little nerve-wracking, was I wanted to see what the other kindergarten teacher I was working with last year did for hers. So I went in and I sat down with her, and you could do it with a different grade as well. And she sat me down like I was the parent first, and she walked me through what she would do and the things she would say to that parent. And then she kind of gave me some examples too of like, well, if I was worried about this, maybe I would say it this way, kind of things like that. And then we reversed our roles. So then I had a chance to walk her through one of my students as she was the parent, and then I was able to play that teacher role. It kind of just helps kind of get that script and like those sentences, like Esther was saying, into your head before you're doing your first one, just to kind of become more comfortable with how you're going to flow and transition between different things. The other thing I had that helped me was I created a schedule, and it was kind of more of like a list of the things that I wanted to make sure I got done in each conference. And it just kind of gave me a flow from beginning to end. It reminded me to, start it with prayer. If there were any concerns or questions that the parents had that they were for sure wanted to address that night, because you do limit your time. It's valuable. You don't want it to be going on. And then all of a sudden you get to the end and a parent's like, oh, but I really wanted to talk to you about. So I made sure that I had a time for questions right at the beginning. We prayed, and the first thing I said was, do you have any questions? I wanted to make sure we were able to address anything that they felt was most necessary. And then it kind of just went into looking at their progress report, a writing sample, and then from there, it continued into any upcoming events, like we were doing an art thing. So I had to make sure that parents understood what that was and how they're going to be able to order, stuff like that. If anything's changing in the classroom, I kind of informed them how new things would be coming home and what that was going to kind of look like. And then I give another time for questions right at the end in case the conversation kind of brought anything up. And for me, just having quick little bullet points really helped me make sure I hit all those things with each family and parent. And then the last thing is, don't be scared to have like those tough conversations. As educators, we're around these kids a lot. We see things that maybe the parents haven't quite noticed yet. It's not our job to be able to diagnose what it is, but it is our job to communicate what we see to those parents. So when you have those concerns about maybe ADHD, or maybe you're noticing some speech patterns, or there's a behavioral thing, it's not our job necessarily to say, oh, I think your child has X, Y, and Z. But we need to say, I've noticed these tendencies. This is what I see. And it's beneficial to have that conversation, especially at this first parent conference, if you can, because the sooner you have that conversation open, the sooner you can have that documentation start. Parents can maybe talk with a pediatrician, and you can get things flowing, especially for the following year, because if there is something, a lot of that takes a lot of time to get kids into. So it gives those parents some extra time to get to those places. Yeah, that's what I have.
Perfect. We just shared a lot about parent-teacher conferences. So as you're thinking about them and planning for them, go ahead and write your questions in the chat if you still have some, and we can always follow back and get to that at the end. Now we're going to talk about communication strategies. So I give myself a 24-hour rule. So if a parent communicates with me, I give myself 24 hours to respond to them. This allows me to teach throughout the school day and not just be focused on my emails all the time. And it also allows me to have time at night with people that I've already scheduled time with. It also allows me to contemplate what they're saying. Now, I usually respond in fewer than 24 hours, but that is, I think, a good standard to have so that parents feel heard. That does not mean that you need definite answers to all of their questions. It means that they need to hear that you heard their message or you read their message, and give them some sort of thing that you, or like a sentence to say that you actually heard it other than I read your message. And then give them a date that you're going to get back to them on if you have to do more research to answer the question. I also like to use I statements when communicating with families. Like, I would like to share with you something that I've noticed, or I am reaching out to partner with you, or I am glad that we can work together to support Susie Q. This also means that you can say, I can't promise that I will always be able to XYZ, but I will work hard to do this other thing. Or I may not know the answer today, but we have a faithful God that does. Let's go to him in prayer. And beginning the statement with I really does help them not to feel attacked as well, because you do want a partnership with parents. Parents are coming to you because they care about their child, and we have to recognize that and value it. I also think that in order to have the best communication, you need to have good rapport with the parents or whatever other adult is in that child's life. So I try to have at least one positive mode of communication with each family by the end of the first quarter. And I know that we're almost there, so you can even do it by the end of the semester. This could be a phone call home, an email, a postcard, whatever works for you, just so that the parents know that you care about their child. Oh, Michaela, I see that you had something too.
Yeah, one thing to kind of help with some of that rapport building too is if you're able to attend events that your school is having, whether it's sporting events or maybe a musical or whatever that is, when you're able to have more of those face-to-face connections with families, it makes conversations later on more natural, because it's not a forced, I haven't really ever said anything to you, but now we need to talk. It kind of just makes a natural, like, oh, we've talked before, like, how's whatever going on now that you have some background with them. And then you're able to kind of go into that. So just having those face-to-face moments makes those harder conversations a lot easier.
And that really helps when handling behavioral issues. And I usually try to handle behavioral issues over the phone, because if parents are used to seeing you in car line, they might feel self-conscious about it because they know that other parents are watching. Oh, the teacher's talking to this person again. They must have a really hard child. So we don't want to embarrass parents at all. And I also try to avoid talking about behavioral issues in email, because tone can be hard to read. And over the phone, you can reassure parents if you can sense that they need the reassurance. Whenever you're communicating with parents, I know at this point you've probably heard about so many different communication like tools that people use. And so I would just choose whatever works for you and then be consistent in it. So if it's a weekly newsletter, just do that every week. If it's monthly, then communicate it that's monthly, but you're going to communicate other ways between. If you use Dojo, then use that or Remind, but just communicate what it is and be consistent with it. And then you can also have different modes of communication so that parents can see it. So if you do send a message to everyone via email, just know that not everyone's going to read their email that night. So you might also want to put something in their folder. And then Michaela.
Yeah, kind of similar things that Esther was saying, but making sure that you're setting those boundaries about what times you're available. Last year, before the school year even started, I told parents that I was giving them my personal phone number, but I said, hey, I'm a person too. I work from this time to this time. And if you text me or something and you want me to know something right away, feel more than welcome. But if it's outside of an hour before school, an hour after school, I might be busy. I might be doing something, and just kind of set that balance of they were able to reach out, but also there was no pressure for me that if I got a message right away or it was 9 o'clock at night that I was like, oh, I need to respond to this person right away. If you set those boundaries right away, parents, for me, were very respectful about it. And it doesn't have to be your personal phone, even with your email, setting that boundary. I mean, lots of people have their email come to their phones now too. So it kind of has that same pressure as a text message, but it does kind of alleviate. And then the parents know what to expect. So they're not sitting there being like, well, why isn't she responding? Well, I told you, when I'm past an hour after school, hour before school, I might be doing something else and I'll get back to you in that 24 hours, but it might not be immediate. Also, if you are able to communicate in multiple ways, kind of like Esther was saying at the end there, they're not all going to check their email. So if you're able to just slide something in a folder, or maybe you're using Remind as well, being able to send it that text message way along with the email, just making sure that those parents are able to be communicated with in multiple ways and not just one singular. Definitely pick what works best for you and be consistent with that. But not all parents' favorite way is your favorite way. So if every once in a while you're able to throw out, especially like important dates like picture day or stuff like that, then parents are able to make sure they know and they can be prepared, which makes our life a lot easier at school too. So it kind of helps you out, even if there's some more work on that front end. And then just keeping that simple. There's lots of ways to communicate. Esther mentioned a lot of them. Don't feel pressured to use it just because somebody else was using this, or you've heard there's so many cool things you can do with this. But if it feels overwhelming, it might not be the time to start using it. You don't want to make that communication stressful for yourself, because if you're uncomfortable using it, it's going to become inconsistent. It's just not going to work out for you. So you just want to make sure that you set yourself up for success in that way.
And if you think of any questions about communication, please post them in the chat, and we will make sure to loop around back to them. So now we're going to talk about the LEA Convocation. It is a wonderful time to meet up with people that you might have gone to college with, and to meet others who are teaching in the same area as you, or doing things, or like it's another way just to get new ideas. So I'm going to post the link in the chat to the Convocation website. The theme this year is together. We cannot wait to be together with you guys. First timers get a gift this year, so make sure that you go to the first timers table to get that and to ask any questions. A few things just for you to know, that plenary sessions and breakouts all have open seating. So communicate with your specific school whether they want you to sit with them, or if you want to, or if they're open to you sitting with people that you've known from your past. And then Scott Hamilton is going to be the plenary speaker. And then Thursday night, we're going to have the skit guys entertain us. Thursday night is a banquet, and that has assigned seating, and that's usually with your school. And then Friday, you either have dinner on your own or with your school, so inquire about that with your school. One way not to get too overwhelmed by it is to know what sectionals you signed up for ahead of time. Some of you might have had administration sign you up for sectionals, Some of you signed up weeks or months ago. So just try to remember or look up which ones you've already been to. I'll go ahead and post a link to the sectionals here. If you have 2 feet, so you can always walk to another one. If you end up realizing at this point in the year, I need this sectional instead of the one I originally signed up for, just go to it, no big deal. The third link I'm posting in there is a list of all the sectionals by the target audience. And then there is a new teacher sectional. It is sectional 267 on Friday from 8 to 9 a.m. And I really encourage all new teachers to go to that, however you define new teacher. I went to it at my first LEA convocation, and it was really helpful just to be reminded of what all new teachers are experiencing and to be able to connect with others as well. So that was really helpful, and I do encourage you to go to that. I also encourage you to go to the exhibit hall. They have a lot of booths in it, and in the center of it, they even have charging ports and popcorn. So bring your cords with you and get charged up there. There is Wi-Fi in the center, in the Wisconsin Center. You'll just hook up to Wi-Fi WCD. You might want to write that down. No password is needed. Oh, thank you, William. He noted that in the chat that booth 535 is for school ministry in the exhibit hall. And then I also encourage you to get the app. It's super easy to get. You download it on, here, I will go ahead and, okay, so it's called the 2022 LEA Convocation app. And you have to download the guidebook app first and then choose that one. This is probably too much posting, sorry. If you click this most recent link, you can scroll down and it'll give you directions for how to use the app and how to download it. And then at registration, you're going to get a booklet. In the back of the booklet, you're going to have a record sheet where you can mark which sectionals that you actually went to. And then I recommend that you take that, make a copy of it, keep the copy in your own files so you have a record of your professional development, and then turn in the original one to your administrator. And then ask your administrator what you need to do to either get or maintain certification in the state that you work. That's super important to stay organized with all of that because each state is a little different. All right. If you have any questions about the convocation, we're super excited to see you there, but you can ask us today in the chat if you have any questions. All right. Now we're going to talk about, the last thing we're going to talk about before questions is self-care. Teachers, you have to take care of yourself because more is caught than taught. The students are going to notice what your habits are, and some of them will start to copy you. So if you have a habit of drinking coffee every morning, some of them will also try to do that. Allow your students to see that you have good self-care habits. Allow them to see you drinking water. This also helps when you are listening to students to force yourself to pause before answering a question to allow them to think through something or add anything. If you're feeling stressed out, breathe through your nose. That really opens up your airways and gets to the lower part. So breathe through your nose, out through your mouth, and you can teach that as well and set boundaries for yourself.
Along with that, even outside of the classroom, taking care of yourself in front of your kids is super important too. But finding that you time each day is super important. My first year of teaching, I'm not going to lie, I was not good at it. I was the first car in the lot in the morning, and I was the last car leaving every single day. People still talk about it. Someone literally said something to me today on my way to my car. They were like, "You're already leaving?" I was like, "Yeah." But make sure you have that you time. I started to find things and get back into things that I really enjoy this year, like running and finding books that I like to read just for fun. And I just feel like I go to school more energized and more ready for my students because I've done things that I've enjoyed, and it's not just school 24/7. It's a hard mold to break. I went through a whole year not doing it. But if you're able to start, if you haven't, it is highly important to be able to do those things. And along with that, finding your group of people, maybe that's through a Bible study that you do, maybe it's somebody on your school staff that you're close to, or maybe there's other people around that you know. Making sure you have time to be with those people, even if it's for a dinner after school one day, or you want to do something on the weekend. You have to have a life outside of school as well. It can't just be school. You have to find that balance within your week as well, not just weekend compared to school week. You have to have something even on those school days that you have to be able to look forward to things. Your kids get to all the time. They come up and tell you, "Oh, today I get my Halloween costume." That's what I've been hearing a lot lately in first grade. And they're excited. They have something to go home to and be excited about. And when you don't have anything that you're doing that you enjoy, you don't have any excitement, and the kids start to realize it for sure.
And that having that you time is so essential that I highly recommend that you schedule it, and schedule time with family, schedule time with God. If it is scheduled, then it makes it a lot easier for you to say no to someone requesting more time at work, at school, because you already have something on your schedule. Sitting on your couch with family is worth it. And you need to do the things that fill your bucket. We tell the students that, and you need to do it yourself as well. And when you do schedule things, leave room for margins, leave room on both ends so that you can get places early. You can stay a little late and not feel rushed. You don't have to book yourself completely full with so many activities, and allow yourself to say no. You don't have to coach every single season just because you're new and nobody else can. If the school wants it badly enough, they'll find someone to do it. All right. My last thing is that grading affects your self-care. And so I don't grade everything. I grade what needs to be assessed. And I spot check certain assignments. I have students grade themselves on others. And for writing, I grade as I conference with students instead of waiting until the end. I have more ideas on that, but I do want you to know that you don't have to be grading all weekend long. You don't even have to grade on weekends. It benefits the students to get immediate feedback anyway. So if you have an assignment piled up on your desk from 2 weeks ago and you haven't graded it yet, then what's the point? If students aren't going to learn from it because it's been so long, then give yourself a break and be better next time to give them immediate feedback. Okay, what questions do you guys have? Or what situations do you want to help addressing, especially related to these topics?
So I have just a couple of thoughts while people are thinking questions. First, Esther and Michaela, as Will and I were sitting here, the comment was made, where was this when we were in our first year? Great job. And part of that is you have a huge network. Utilize your network, right? You've got Michaela and Esther here. We're all in this together. So always remember, people are there to help you, support you, encourage you. ask questions, use your resources wisely.
Al, if I may jump in on this.
Yep.
If you haven't already, do join the Luth Ed board or Facebook page for that. It's a great resource for teachers, great community. People just throw questions out there, and it's all sorts of educators, from new educators, retired educators, and really all across the world when we look at our metrics. And they're just providing some valuable resources and support there for you.
And, you're talking about before, just stay healthy. And we hear this all the time, God, family, vocation, and it has to be in that order. Otherwise, everything's out of balance, right? And sometimes it's a lot easier said than done as an educator. I've been in education a long time. As a teacher, as a principal, as a head of school. And it was always tough in that balance. So it's very easy to get it flipped. So great advice, schedule the time, right? Put it in your phone, put it in your computer, do something, because otherwise it can get out of balance in a hurry. You have a friend that reminds you of that, an accountability buddy that reminds you of that. Are you keeping this in good order so that you are staying healthy? Healthy church workers create healthy ministries. If we don't have healthy church workers, our ministries will suffer as well, meaning what the students get and receive, and what the families do, and so on. So keep that in mind. Also, just a couple other things that I think were great. Set the tone. Your first communication for the school year is outstanding. It sets everything up. When you're getting into parent-teacher conferences here, it's a good chance to remind the parents of that first communication of the year. Maybe just hand it out again. What your expectations are, your contact information, maybe grading policies and some of these other things. I put a note down, Esther and Michaela, any suggestions on physical space in those parent-teacher conferences? Because that was something we always talked about. You want it to be inviting. You don't want to. It's very easy, I always thought, for our first-year teachers. It can be intimidating, right? You got parents coming in first time. You're going over some things. Do you sit behind your desk? Do you put 2 chairs out in front of your desk? Do you go out and 3 desks together so you're with them? Any thoughts, advice?
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that. I have a circular table. A lot of other teachers have kidney-shaped tables or the half circle tables. I have my conferences there. It's the same place that I have my student and teacher conferences when we're talking about writing or just one-on-one work as well. So the parents get to sit where their children have sat before. And when it's a round table, it looks like you're actually talking together, and you as the teacher aren't higher than them sitting in your teacher chair or on your teacher's stool. I try to have our chairs all literally at the same level so that they know that we are a team and that I do value their input. So I don't sit at my teacher desk for those because I think that creates a borderline of space. Now I use the legs on the table, underneath the table, to separate the chairs. So they can't scoot closer to me because they're going to bump into the leg. And then I also have my paper in front of me, and I'll scoot that towards the center of the table so that they can see it really well. Yeah, Michaela, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I had a kidney-shaped table last year, and that's what we'll use again this year. It's what we used when we had our families come visit our classrooms before the school year started. And that's family and kids both come in, and similarly, we have the stuff ready that we want them to be able to reference and just slide that across so that it's kind of in a spot that you can all see it. You're able to point at what you need for them to be looking at and re-emphasizing with that. And kind of just creates that we're having a conversation kind of a feeling more than, well, I'm the teacher, I'm here to talk to you and tell you things, that's why you're here. You want to make sure that they feel able to ask those questions that they have, or if they have any concerns or anything like that, that they're able to share those with you, because that insight's helpful as their teacher as well.
I always, one of the other things, take notes during that parent-teacher conference. So the next parent-teacher conference, you can refer back. And I always like to give something to the parents to take away, which was, this is what we talked about. Here's, kind of the setup as we move forward, some of the things that we agreed to work on or whatever else, just so they had something to take away. And I also, as an administrator, I'll throw this out there. Sometimes we had teachers that might expect a difficult conversation. And I always asked my teachers to come to me if they thought, here's someone schedule a parent-teacher conference. It might be a difficult conversation. Let me know so I can walk by. I like to monitor that situation. I was always walking the hallways anyway and going around. But if you had one that you were just thinking, it'd be nice just in case, that's why we're there as administrators. We're there to help, to guide, to encourage, and situations like that to be there. So give us a heads up. And also, that goes to the don't get caught off guard. Don't let your administrator get caught off guard. Don't let yourself get caught off guard. Don't let parents get caught off guard, right? That goes back to the whole communication cycle. One of the things I hear all the time, I heard it as an administrator, I heard it as a district ed exec, I still hear it. It's always Lutheran schools, relationships, communication. If you have breakdowns in one of those two, that's where you're going to have conflict and struggles. So build the relationships. You talked about the team environment, right? That's so very important. Parents sometimes will seem maybe, let's say, upset or something. But again, Michaela and Esther, you pointed out right head on. They love their kids. They're concerned about their kids. They want the best for it. And that's the perspective they're coming from. Sometimes because of that, they might come in strong. So figure out a couple of tips, and Michaela and Esther, you might have those to kind of de-escalate that a little bit and remind them, hey, we're all in this together. We all want what's best for your child.
Yeah, I mean, one thing is really kind of going back to those I statements. If a conversation is going out of where you feel comfortable having that conversation, just saying, you know what, I need some time to think about this. Can we meet again at another time? And then it's not the blame of you're way too emotional. We can't have this conversation. You don't want to tell them that. They're just going to get mad at you for not wanting to talk to them. But finding a way to put that on yourself, being like, you know what, I need some time to think about this. Let me find what resources I have so that I can get back to you with a full answer. Kind of turns it into a way for them to appreciate that you're taking the time to hear them without negating how they're feeling and telling them that what they're feeling and what they're saying isn't okay.
And some parents will come in with a whole list of things that they want to talk with you about. And it is important that you listen to that whole list. But because there is a time frame for the conference, I would ask them I would say, what is the most important thing that you would like to discuss today? And then you can always schedule more time later to discuss the other things. That way they have to prioritize, and then you don't have to worry about trying to think of everything. If parents are coming to you saying like, you're assigning too much, or they're just complaining about a lot of things, say some of the strategies that you've seen that have been successful, but then also say, what has helped you at home? And if they have something that has truly helped them at home, thank them for that. And if it's something you can copy in the school, then you can copy it. Then you can use their strategies because they see their kid maybe in a different atmosphere, or maybe they have tried something that'll help you as well. And remind the parents that you are thankful for their support in their child's education. They need to hear that you're thankful for them as well. And then you can also say, if they say like, there's this problem and used to only be a small problem last year, but now it's a big problem, then you can say, is there a teacher who found successful strategies that I can talk to about this? Because then you can meet up with that teacher, and then you can tell the parent after you've met up with them, I met up with them, I'm excited to implement XYZ. And then that also shows that you're going to work with your coworkers so that this school year doesn't have to seem like a totally brand new start for the child, but that the parent feels like you're actually building on what they've already learned from past teachers.
I think another important factor, and Michaela, you said, be at events. If parents see you at events, not just the kids, I mean, the kids love it, right? They love to know that you were there, and they'll play to that as well. And it's great the next day in the classroom if you can say, oh, wasn't that a great soccer game yesterday, or whatever else, the drama production, whatever the case might be. Parents see you there too. So parents will know that you're invested, that you're building those relationships and those connections, and that goes a long way. I've seen teachers struggle before, especially in parent-teacher conferences and other situations, because parents had not seen them at things. So they don't have that same relationship built, that same connection. And I'm not saying, friend relationships or anything like that. It's the investment relationship, that you're there outside of the classroom as well. So you know more of a total picture of their child. You know what they're doing over here as well as here. It goes a long way. Sometimes it's nice, after the parent-teacher conference, send a thank you note to the parents. They're not expecting that, right? And you're thanking them for being invested and coming to meet with you so that you can work together for the benefit of the growth of their child.
That's exactly what I was about to say as well.
I knew that. I stole that from you.
No, I appreciate it. I'm glad that you mentioned it. I also think it's good to have pencils and pens ready to go so that the parents can grab it and take notes so they don't have to waste time digging in their purse for it. Just have them available for parents to use during the conference, as well as extra sticky notes so that they can jot down their own thoughts.
Another thought about conferences, kind of off on its own little side, would be think about how you're going to schedule them. And when you do make the schedule, make sure you leave those minutes in between, that if you do need to go to the bathroom quick, you can go. You don't want to have to be sitting there holding it all night. We can do it. We're all teachers, but doesn't mean we want to. So just finding ways that you're able to have that, especially out to parents ahead of time so that they're able to see it. Sign Up Genius works really well for it. That's what we've used in the past. That's what I used last year. It's what we use for our family visits this year. But just thinking about how you want to have that set up and make it nice and easily accessible to parents as well.
That's a great point. In fact, we used to encourage our teachers to use, a fictitious parent name to make sure that you scheduled in there a 15-minute break every so often for, you have to get away mentally as well, just to regroup, make sure you got everything together. Put that in, or, just put in break or whatever else, because it's needed. Sometimes teachers feel bad about that. Oh no, I want to get another parent in there, whatever is the case. You have to have that break time. We always had little snacks, beverages, and things in the teacher's workroom, which is always nice to have because, you need to be refreshed too. But think of all those things. I'll go back to LEA a little bit. It can be overwhelming, right? So don't get overwhelmed at LEA and the numbers. Take a look at it ahead of time, use the app, kind of chart out the sessions that you want to go to. Make sure you stop by the best booth possible, which is LCMS School of Ministry, booth 535. See, I keep putting that shameless plug in there. Right? So, but we'd love to see you there and all the other great people that are there. It will be uplifting, encouragement, and a joyful time, and you'll get to see. Sometimes we're at our schools, and you see your school people, your school environment, and your parents, and that's fantastic. But we can forget about the great big ministry that we have as a whole. 1,885 schools, 21,000 teachers, and 150,000 students that you are part of. That's pretty awesome, right? You talk about doing God's work and spreading the gospel message. That's who you're in this with. And they are one great big cloud of witnesses right there with you to encourage you, walk with you, support you, do anything they can to make sure that you are successful. So enjoy LEA. Have fun. Also, make sure you get a bag and get all the goodies and throw them all in and take them back. Some fun
Yes.
you can give out from time to time in your classroom too, right? I mean, you could throw them in little goodie bags over there, have students pick from it, hand them out for whatever else. Great way to increase your collection.
Grab a handful of Luth Ed stickers for those Chromebooks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have one on mine.
So this is the first time hearing about it. Where have I missed out? What am I not connected with?
About the LEA Convocation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and-
not all schools go to it. It is the Lutheran Education Association. And even if you're not going to the convocation, you can still be a part of the worldwide LEA community by following them on lea.org. And then I would bring it up to your administrator and say, hey, in 3 years, we're going to have this convocation. Can we start budgeting for it now? Because it is basically a convention of Lutheran educators all in one city. And you get to see people from different Concordias or different Lutheran ministries and schools. And you get to choose sessions that that apply to you to get more information and be encouraged in what you're doing. So it's a really good opportunity. And the best part, it is a Lutheran one. It is focused on God's word. And so this year they're focusing on Ephesians 2 verses 19 through 22 and talking about how we are all brought together and we're together in ministry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Jessica, I see you have a question in the chat asking any suggestions for the parents that run through conferences or conversations quickly. Yeah, parents a lot of the time come in and they're kind of in a rush. I found that having that schedule was really the piece that kind of slowed everything down because it wasn't necessarily at the pace of how fast the parent wanted to get through it all. It was at the pace of what I was setting up and what I wanted to tell them and make sure that everything was communicated. And some parents' conversations are going to be quicker than others. It's just how they kind of go. If that student really doesn't have very many concerns and you show them their grades and they're all where they should be and the writing sample's nice and you tell them what's new and they're like okay, or they've already had a student come through the school before, some of those conversations do just naturally end up quicker, but making sure you have those points that you want to hit is really the important part. That's kind of what I have to say about that.
I've also found that when we start in prayer with a calm voice where we're pausing at punctuation marks, then it sets the tone for the rest of the conference as well. And so if you know that you need that inner peace, start off that way. Well, I mean, start off that way no matter what, but be mindful of how you're starting off so that even if they're talking very quickly, you start off feeling calm.
I'm going to go back just, Sandy, a second on your question on LEA, because really it's, LEA's fellowship and it's professional development. It's time to be together and recognize 2,800 people typically will be at LEA this year. So quite a few. There are several opportunities for professional development though, and Will just mentioned Luth Ed. Our Luth Ed Facebook page is a great way to get ideas and to throw questions out. I'm not so sure about choosing curriculum for next year. I'm not so sure how to teach this unit, or I don't know, name whatever, and you can post it there and you can see the threads of everyone coming together to help out. So that's a great location. And there's other resources like that, and we do have a lot of those links and items on Luth Ed Facebook, we also have on our on luthed.org. That's a great place to go. We have a lot of drop downs on there. One of the drop downs happens to be a resources tab. So we have things like the school ministry mailing. Articles will be in there, and including devotions and some other items that you can tap into as a resource. What else we have in there, Will?
We have some just free resources for teachers. It really ranges anywhere from religion curriculum, coloring pages for younger grade teachers. It has a plethora of information, that's for sure, and we're always looking at expanding it. You can also always follow us on our Facebook, LCMS School Ministry, where we do push out a lot of content, and on our YouTube, which is LCMS School Ministry, as we're working to build out some more video tutorial content that's actually aimed not just for like administrators or some of our district ed execs, but for you directly as a teacher to take into your classroom.
And if you're trying to find something, email us and we'll steer you in the right direction, the right individual, the right ministry to get some of those things. In fact, some of our resources are also possible speakers and some other things. I'll plug our school ministry Facebook page. We've been doing interviews with each of the directors here at the International Center. So we interviewed, for instance, Reverend Mark Kiesling, who is the director of youth ministry, talking about all kinds of youth resources that are out there for your use, talking a little bit about the last youth gathering as well. We've interviewed Dorothy Kranz, Deaconess Dorothy Kranz, who is director of recognized service organizations. And you might think, well, what does that have to do with schools? Well, a lot of them have fundraisers that tie into schools that you can have your kids do, your whole school ministry do. I'm thinking of one I just visited not long ago, Phil's Friends, where they color boxes and they collect items for it. And, you know, a lot of our districts do Hearts for Jesus that have classroom collections or chapel collections. They also have some of the RSOs, recognized service organizations, will come out and do chapels or speak to your classroom about just their ministry and what's going on. There's so many things that are out there. In fact, when I was doing the interviews, in every one of them, I always mention, what do you have for our educators? Because we as educators, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So if something is out there that really benefits us, benefits our students, our classrooms, our school as a whole, we want to tap into that. So great resources all over the place.
And those were just placed in the chat if you're looking for links for that. Our Facebook group is also a closed group. So if you're not a part of that, which is #LuthEd, when you go to join it, please make sure you fill out those questions. They're really simple questions like, do you work in a Lutheran school? Stuff like that. And that's just to help us verify, you know, you're first off a real person, you're not coming in there to try and sell us something. But also that, you know, you're staying within the group's parameters of Lutheran education. Otherwise, it'll immediately like kick you out of there after an hour, and we won't see your application for it.
So we have about 3 minutes left. Any final questions or thoughts? Esther, Michaela, any final thoughts to wrap up?
I see Hannah's question. It's, how do you respectfully communicate on a daily basis and during conferences with a parent who's very defensive about their child's behavior and doesn't agree with the curriculum inside of the classroom? So I'm smiling because I understand this question. Know that their feelings of the curriculum are not their feelings of you. So they want what's best for their child, and so do you. You might not both agree on what that is, but at least you have that shared understanding that you both desire what's best. So I would say behavior and curriculum, I'm going to address them separately. if they're defensive of their child's behavior, there's a lot in the classroom that you can do to hopefully get all students to take ownership of their behavior. Parents don't need to hear every single time their student talked during class. Some parents at this point are just exhausted of hearing more negatives than positives. And so you might want to ask them, at what point would it help you for me to communicate with you about behavior? Or at what point do you want me to? Because if it's overwhelming and if I can address it in the classroom, then we can just try that out for now. And I've had parents say, yes, please. Like, if you can take that load off of me as a parent, then that would be great. And then if a big issue arises, let me know. But if you don't need my support at home, it's okay for me not to know. And that's okay, because we do have to think about the emotional and mental needs of the families as well. It also helps you if you don't have to communicate everything with the parents who are defending their child. Then the child won't necessarily hear their parents defending them as often, which might help them take more ownership. And then when it comes to curriculum, try to figure out why they don't like the curriculum, if you're willing to address it. If you're not, thankfully, you have wonderful admin who are going to support you because they helped choose the curriculum. Especially as a new teacher, you might not know why it was chosen. So get some insight as to why it's chosen, why your school believes that it's good. And then you can tell parents why it's beneficial or why it's chosen. If it's just about how much the child is studying, then maybe ask the parents to log how much the child is studying so that you can see how they're studying and how long they're studying. And usually if parents log it and turn it into you so that you can figure out what the best way for them is to study, then that child is usually going to study more and their grades will go up and you didn't even have to do anything. So that's one thing that I've used. I know our time is running short. I'm willing to stay on and do more questions if you have any. But I also want to respect your guys' time as well. So if we don't have any, oh, go ahead.
Why don't I close this in prayer, and then if you want to stay on for a few minutes, we can follow up on some of these.
Sounds good.
Right. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for this time to be together and encouraging and questions and seeking wisdom so that we can do your work in school ministries. We give you thanks for everyone that joined today. We thank you for Michaela and Esther and their willingness to give of their time and talent and energy to lead these sessions. Be with us the remainder of this day. Allow us to do your work always, and always allow us to do all to your glory as we serve you in all things. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.